All right, I think we are live.
Yay.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So good
Good
morning.
job. Only
Yes,
two
thank
minutes
you.
late. We're
I
good.
know.
I know.
Yes. So good morning to everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning to all my mamas and moms to be. I am Lacey Dawson, also known as Lele Ush on Facebook, here in the Jubilee Mama Empowerment Support Group, here with my friend Darlene Wooldridge here with me. She's going to do a wonderful presentation on how to preserve your body while taking care of your little one. So, Darlene, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been a physical
Sure.
therapist and what your specialty is and where you're located.
Okay. So I've been a physical therapist for, I always say, a million years. It's been a long, long time. I graduated PT school at NYU a long time ago, and I was 21. So, like, it's crazy how long it's just been. It was way back when you could get a bachelor's degree and start working, and then I got my master's, and I got my master's in pediatrics, which I absolutely loved.
Awesome.
I worked peds a lot in the hospitals. I did a lot of, actually, my master's project was on pregnancy and exercise.
Nice.
So I did a lot of research on that. Um, it's really been a love of mine. And then I got pregnant and I had my child, and then I decided I can't do pediatrics anymore.
Oh.
And the reason was, I always joke because my son was so active. I'm like, oh gosh, like I can't work peds and then go home and have my son. But the truth of the matter was, I was working pediatrics mostly in the hospital, and then once I had him, I was doing outpatient. And when I was doing outpatient, I was standing there talking to parents for stupid little developmental things. Like, I mean, things that probably wouldn't make a real big difference. In the hospital, it was life and death in a lot of cases. But when I had my child and I was talking to the parents, I started tearing up and I was almost crying. And I got so emotional that I thought, this isn't professional and it isn't fair. So I decided to, maybe integrate peds with other things. Right now, I do orthopedics. I do a lot of necks and backs, and it's just now sort of integrating a little bit between, pregnancy and moms and backs and a lot of other things. So that's where I am right now. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So thank you for
Yeah.
coming, and we're excited. We are happy for your expertise. And also, as well, I'm a physical therapist. I've been for almost 15 years, but I'm
Yeah.
so happy that you're here because, you have a wealth of knowledge, especially with the backs and working with pregnant women and moms. So I'll let you go ahead with your presentation. Just let us know how to preserve our bodies while taking care of our little ones.
I will.
Mhm.
So excuse my COVID-19 look. Like I was telling Lele, a patient of mine yesterday said to me, gosh, you're going to be happy to see the hairdresser when this all gets over. So thank you very much. Yeah, I will.
You look
You
wonderful.
should,
You look wonderful, by the way.
you should be too. I'm just happy to see that I don't have as much gray as I thought I had, but I do have a fair bit. So one of the things I want to first talk about is like what happens to your bodies while you're pregnant. And I think a lot of people are familiar with the hormone relaxin that comes into your body.
Mhm.
And that hormone basically is in our bodies, male and female, but mostly females, our entire lives. So the hormone is in our body. It's released, I think, 14 days before your menstruation to prepare yourself in case you do get pregnant. And then basically it's at its highest levels, and then it gets flushes out when you have your period. When you get pregnant, it stays in your body, and what it does, exactly what the name says, it relaxes your ligaments basically, and the rest of your body, including even your digestive system. That's why people get a lot of heartburn and stuff. So this hormone comes in and relaxes your ligaments so that you can pass that baby through your pelvis. So you get that bowling ball coming through your pelvis. You need something to relax it. And if you think about that, it's a wonderful thing that God has done where he's taken this hormone, allowed your body to relax. But then you think, does it ever go back?
Mhm.
Um, there's not a whole lot of good research on whether it really goes back and what
No.
level it goes back to. And I can tell you from experience, your body doesn't really go back the way it did. And that's okay. It's a new body, and that's what you have to learn to live with. You need to learn to live with that new body. So it's an interesting concept. If you take your ligaments, which are pretty strong, a pretty strong structure, holds your bones together. Those ligaments all of a sudden become like rubber bands. So if you take a skeleton and you put rubber bands in between each of the bones, and then you start to move, it becomes a very lax, loose structure. And that's sort of what your body becomes as you're pregnant, so that everything can relax. And the hormone goes to your pelvis, but it goes to the rest of your body as well. So you always have to be aware of that. So the supporting structure on top of that is your muscles. So you have to be very, very aware of what your muscles are doing for your body. And as your center of gravity, I'm going to see back up a little bit, as your belly gets bigger, your center of gravity goes a little bit forward.
Right.
So you have to always keep it a little further back so that you basically don't stumble forward. A little bit of an exaggeration, but similar.
Right.
So your skeleton, I always like to say, is your bones come together like a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces fit together just perfectly. You've got grooves and curves and stuff, and those bones fit together perfectly when they're in the perfect position. If they're not in the perfect position, they're a little bit off. You get a lot of wear and tear, which translates to inflammation and then pain.
Right.
So it's really, really important that your posture is good. So from your neck posture, your torso posture, everything in your body, including your feet. Our feet when we're pregnant start to spread a little bit, and that's because of the hormone relaxin. So if your feet aren't in the right position, that takes your feet and might put them spread like this, and then it goes up the chain to your knees, to your hips, to the rest of your body. Right. So everything has to be, it's one functioning unit. One thing that's off can cause a lot of problems. So just bear that in mind, and bear that in mind after you give birth to the baby. It's wonderful, but your body is just not back to where it should be. So you have to put it back where it's supposed to be, and be very, very cautious. Biggest problem, especially later in pregnancy, is back pain. It's really, really common. And where your hip bones meet that triangular little bone in the base of your spine called your sacrum, that's your SI joint. And that gets irritated a lot because it becomes a little less stable, and because the supporting muscles around it aren't being used the way they're supposed to be used. Right. So those are things I wanted to just go over at first. And some of the things that you have to be really, really careful of is how you sit, how you stand, right, how you get in and out of a car, how you sleep. All of those little things will add up over a period of time to either give you a lot more pain and you have no idea where the pain is coming from, or it will help you gain more strength and create a more stable body. So when we're standing is the biggest thing, especially when you have a pregnant woman and then you have a little toddler or even an infant baby. Most women stand, and see if these earbuds will last a little bit. Most people will stand, and they don't stand straight up. They stand like this. And Hannah, grab my baby. Mm-hmm. And do you know how expensive these dolls are? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. She's so cute. She's really cute. Where's the camera? She's really cute. But I went out and I bought her, and I thought, you know what? My granddaughters are going to love having this baby. So I thought, well, I'll just buy one and she'll love it. Yes. And they will love it. Yes. But gosh, it's like, if I had to send her to college, I'd be in trouble. But so she's cute. She feels really real. I haven't turned the button on where she cries, and I won't. I'll save that for my daughter-in-law. But when we carry the babies, so you have the baby here, and then you carry the baby, typically a lot of women just put the baby on their hips. On the hips, yeah, exactly. They put them on their hips, and then they stand like this. And I don't know if you can see. I'm going to unplug this so you can see a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. So they stand like this, and they jump the one hip out. So when you do that, let me put this back in. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. But when you do that, you're effectively causing one leg to be higher and one leg to be shorter.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like much, but if you're supposed to be equal and then you do this sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
the muscles get tighter on one side and looser on the other. And if you ever notice, when you pick up the baby, you typically put it on one hip. You favor one more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that side becomes a little bit longer, and the other leg is bent and becomes shorter. So the muscles on the unsupported side just sort of get a little bit tighter, and we keep doing that, and it's going to just become a little bit like that. So even when you don't have the baby, you'll be standing at a party,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have a drink in one hand, and you do the same thing. You hang on the one hip.
Exactly.
So you have to be very, very careful about that. So when you're holding the baby, you can hold the baby on your hip.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all these really cool new things now. Did you see that little belt with a sort of like a little shelf?
Yes.
I have no idea how it works, but it seems really cool. It's a
Yes.
great idea.
I have one.
Do you like it?
I haven't used it since she was really small. And my daughter, we just went to the 15-month appointment. She's 29 pounds, 5 ounces. So imagine me carrying this big, and she's tall. She's 33 and a half inches.
Wow.
And me holding on to her. And of course, and like you said, I'm favoring my right side. But then when I switch to the other side, I feel like my left arm is weaker. So I can't hold her on that side. So I'm always on the one side. So I feel crooked. I feel off balance. And I know I should do certain things to get better with it. But maybe you can, help me out in that too.
Think of it like it's like you're going to the gym.
Yep.
I always thought especially when I had my son, because my son now is 6'1", he's 200 plus pounds, he's huge. And I'm like 5'2", and I'm fairly petite.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm next to him, even my daughter-in-law says, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you ever gave birth to that child." And when he was little, he had a head, we had a C-section. His head was huge, just huge. So my pelvis went through torture before we actually had, the surgery.
Wow.
And, worth every moment, now that he's married and has 3 kids of his own. But, he grew up like so fast, and my arms were like guns. It was amazing. Like, I just thought, this is progressive resistive exercise. Every time I pick him up, if I concentrate, it's like having a workout, which is the same thing. If you think you're just using your right arm with her, periodically make it an effort to pick her up with the other arm.
Yes.
Just even it out a little bit, because our body does become very one-sided.
Right.
And the other thing you can do is, and I love doing this with the babies, face them outwards.
Mm-hmm.
If you face them outwards, you can use your body as stability. Put your hand in the crotch, and see, this doll doesn't have any extensors, so she's just going forward. But you're actually doing the baby a favor, because they're building on their extensor muscles, because they want to see what's going on. So they use their neck muscles and their back muscles more when they're faced out like this.
Mm-hmm.
When you have them in like this, they don't get to see anything. They don't get the stimulus, and they're a little more close. So they're working on their flexor muscles, which, they're born in the fetal position. They don't need to work on their flexor muscles as much as they need to work on their extensor muscles.
Yep.
So I would change hips a little bit, one side, the other side, and even sometimes just face forward. You can stand there.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when you're standing, not only do you not hang on one hip, but make sure that your weight bearing is equal on your big toe, your little toe, and your heels.
Correct.
Equally on both feet. So if you do that, big toe, little toe, and heels, you have equal weight bearing on both legs. So up the entire chain, you're going to have equal weight bearing.
Right.
Whereas if you just have your weight on your toes or on your heels or one side or the other side, you're doing your body a disfavor. Mm-hmm. The other thing that you don't want to do, especially after having a baby, is cross your legs. Mm-hmm. If you sit with your legs crossed, it's the same thing as standing with one hip like this. It's similar in that you cross your legs, you're taking the muscles on the one side and stretching them, and the other side is shortening. And
Now, Darlene, when you say cross your legs, you mean one leg over the other, or are you talking about
Yep.
ankles? You're
No,
talking about
no,
not
one leg.
ankles, right? Okay, I just want to make
Yep.
sure
Your
that was
knees
fair. Yep,
cross.
yep.
Can't
Crossing
get.
your
I
knees.
can't
Okay,
get far enough away.
that's
But your
okay.
knees,
Yep.
one leg
So
over the
one leg
other.
over. Okay, got it.
Right. So if you sit down and you typically cross your legs, like we were taught, ladies should cross their legs. If you do that, typically you'll put one leg over the other, and it feels weird if you switch over and do the other side.
Correct.
So if it's a habit and you sit down and you just cross one leg over the other, if you think about it, because you always have to, correct yourself, I always take the other leg and cross it over just to equal it out a little bit,
Yes.
and then try my best to sit equal weight bearing on both butt cheeks,
Hmm.
and get that balance with that.
Correct.
Getting in and out of your car, really, really, really important. So this is a big problem with people that have back problems, and especially sacroiliac dysfunction, your SI problems. If you open the door to the car, I'm going to put my baby down, open the door to the car, and you put one leg out,
Mm-hmm.
and then step on that leg, and you twist your whole body around that one leg, you're going to find that you're going to be inflamed on that one side. So what you really need to do is, when you're sitting down, open the door, both legs out together, put both feet on the floor, and then stand up on both feet.
Both feet.
It's really important. It's little things like that that are going to create a big problem with your back and your low back. And if you have a back problem, you can't pick your baby up. You can't do things. You can't do things around the house. You're of very little value to your family if you're just sitting around with a lot of back pain. So if you can prevent these things from happening, you're so much better off.
Correct.
And then if you go to pick the baby up, so say the baby's on the floor, you go to pick her up. What you want to do, I'm going to take this off just a little bit. Sorry. I do have to get a better setup. Sorry. So if you're going to go pick the baby up, say she's on the floor, you go to pick her up. Don't just pick her up like that. You want to bend your knees. So you really do want to bend your knees and squat. And pick them up, bring them close to you.
Right.
Really important to bring the baby close to you. And let me see if I can put this back in.
There you go.
Sorry. If you don't have the baby close to you, you're going to put the center of gravity and all that weight out in front of you. And it's going to be pressure on your arms, on your back, your torso, and your back. So if you can bring anything, including groceries, if you take groceries and you can put them on your arm and use your bigger muscles to support them and bring it closer to your body, you're going to be saving your body and saving energy. So the baby should always be as close to you as possible. When they get a little bit older and they start squirming and, wanting to get down, my husband used to always have this saying with the kids when they got a little bit older, because when they do get older and they still want to be held, he would say, "We ordered you with legs, use them." And when they get a little bit older and they can use their legs, it's really important that you can hug them. I'll sit down and you can sit in my lap. But if I have to stand and hold you, I'm going to be abusing my body. Go to daddy, who's a little bit bigger and doesn't hold you as often. But, wait till mommy sits down and then you can sit in my lap. Yes. But when they're little, you can carry them around. But it gets exhausting. It gets exhausting.
It does.
Yeah, I remember when my son was in school. They're 4 years apart. So he was in school and I would go pick him up. 2:00 every day was when school let out down here. 2:00 was the time my daughter took a nap. I would take her out of that car seat and I would carry her to the school to go pick him up. She would be sleeping. I mean, she could still sleep through a tornado right now.
Right.
So she would be sleeping in my arms and I would be trudging to the school, killing myself, just killing myself because, you're running a little bit late. Let me just bring it in. She'll wake up. She never woke up. Never woke up. It was crazy. So if you can use strollers, if you can use all the accessories, that's great. A lot of us can't. A lot of us just don't have the time or the ability to do that.
Can
The
I
other
just,
thing I want to, go
Darling,
ahead,
before
go
you go
ahead.
further, I just want to add one thing. Also, with the moms with the little ones, sometimes we like to use the carrier. And I've seen moms just dragging the babies back and forth. And what I did for myself was for my baby shower, I wanted to get a frame that because I use Graco as, as a car seat.
Hmm.
So they had a frame. And what I would do is just pick her up from the car, turn, put her in the frame, and then push her along. I said, I'm
Yeah,
not carrying that carrier. And a lot of times the baby's getting like hit by your leg and their heads are flopping around. So
right.
do you have any recommendations for the moms using the carrier, even if it's a short distance? Maybe they don't have a frame, maybe they don't want to take the
Uh,
baby out. It's so dangerous for your back, for your arms, even for the
so
baby to be flopping around, you know.
yeah, so back in my day, we didn't have the carrier.
Right,
Well, we had a carrier, but we didn't have the frame. The
right.
carriers were so bulky that, if you took them out, you'd kill yourself.
Mhm.
But if you do take them out, you've got to use both arms. You've
Right,
you've got to use both arms and use those biceps. Otherwise, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to hurt your shoulder. You're going to hurt your back. You're going to, the baby's going to get hurt. I mean, I can just see the last thing you want to do is drop your baby, but your arms are going to give out. Those are heavy.
yes.
So I would say pretty much don't do it unless it's really short,
Right,
um,
right.
like really short, because it's just crazy. I tried to do that with my granddaughter. I brought them both to the park, and I'm like, I cannot carry it. The carrier were so heavy with the infant. I said, I can't do this. So I took her out of the carrier, and I brought her to the park. And then I had a hard time because my little one didn't want to get off the slide. So here I am with the infant, like trying
Yeah.
to crawl up a slide, grab her down. I'm like, this is for young people. This is not for me. And all of a sudden, this really nice grandma was like, get down. No, I'm going to tell your mother.
Yes, yes.
So that was not, it wasn't pretty. It just wasn't pretty. Um, but hey, you know what? That's what parenting is about. Parenting isn't always pretty.
Right.
Those women that have the time to make their own baby food, to, use cloth diapers, to have their house all clean, to have the dinners ready, to have their nails still manicured.
Mhm.
It's a myth. If you can do that, good for you. Good for
Yes,
you.
yes.
The rest of us are trying to keep our kid alive,
Yeah,
trying to keep them safe,
yeah.
trying to keep them, happy and, disease free. And the same thing with yourself. That's it. If the kid can stay clean, you don't have to be as clean. But if the kid can stay clean, healthy, and, still with us, you're doing a good job,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
it will pass.
Mhm.
But the one thing I wanted to also mention when you're picking your child up is not only bend and use your legs, is take your abdominals, engage your abdominals. That means tighten your belly muscles every time you bend down and pick up, because that will help support your back. And I know it sounds a little bit silly if people aren't in the medical field to realize this, but tightening your belly will help with your back. There
Yes.
actually are muscle fibers from your abdominals that go around to your back.
Mhm.
And when your abdominals tighten, it takes those fibers and it tightens them as well. So you do need support. And, your belly's been stretched. It's been stretched for a long time. It's not going to come back in a short period of time. I'm almost 60 years old and still isn't back 100%. So it may never come back to where it was. But you have to be very determined to tighten those muscles every time you pick up.
Right.
And when you're intentional about doing that, it will help. So I did want to mention a few other things. Yeah, if there are any tools out on the market that I'm unaware of, which there are tons because things have changed so much, if you can use them, that's great. But I also find that sometimes they're just not as convenient.
Right.
So the best tool that you have is your body, is your muscles. And the one thing I really want to mention is you are the most important person. You really are. You need to take care of yourself. If your well is empty, you can't give to anybody else. So take care of yourself, get enough sleep wherever you can, try to be as strong as possible. Your mental, emotional, and physical being is really important. And your child's, your child benefits from it. Your whole family benefits from it. So
Exactly.
sometimes you need help. Sometimes just ask for help.
Hmm.
And sometimes people don't know how to help. So you have to say, hey, listen, can you do this? Can you come over? Can you watch them for 10 minutes?
That's right.
Um, can you watch them when I go to the grocery store? And now's not a good time to go to the grocery store and linger. But when my kids were younger, I remember saying to my husband, I'm going to go to the grocery store. It was like an hour later. I would read greeting cards in the grocery store just to get a little bit of mental
Yeah,
clarity. Like,
yeah, yeah,
okay, I'm just going to hang out here for a while. Because
yeah.
sometimes you need that space. You need
Hmm.
space to exercise. You need, whether it's meditate, whatever you do to refresh and restore yourself, you need to do that.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and that's pretty much it. Oh, the other thing I did forget was when my kids were young. I remember we'd go on long car trips sometimes, and they'd start whining and crying. And my habit was to throw them food. Literally, sometimes I would just like be
Hmm.
throwing food in the back seat. But a lot of times I would take my arm and I'd go back, and I
Right.
realized, man, my shoulder is killing me.
Yeah.
Just don't do that, because you take your arm and you go back in between the two seats like that.
Right.
It's putting a lot of pressure on your arm. Don't do that. Find a
Exactly.
better way. Whether you set yourself up before you go on a long car trip or a short car trip, make sure they have access to things close by. If
Mhm.
they throw it on the floor, that's a time where they learn it's just not going to come right
Right.
back to them. Don't
Exactly.
reach down and try to get it. You are going to kill your shoulder. And let me tell you, if it doesn't hurt now, it will hurt later. So
Hmm.
be really careful with that. If somebody else is in the car with you in the passenger seat and they can actually turn their entire body around to help, that's one thing.
Right.
But do not do that. It's so important. And you keep doing that on a daily basis, you're going to really hurt yourself.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
that's any questions you have? I like my
Um.
little baby.
Yeah. Yeah. You should name the baby.
I paid enough money for her.
So, maybe I'll ask a couple of questions. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, what would you recommend for moms? Okay, so now we learned how to pick up our babies, how to put them down, how to carry them. What would you recommend? Like, okay, so for instance, when we're changing the baby's diaper, should we put them on the floor, bend over? Should we have it set up where it's in a place where we can stand appropriately and not have to lean over? Just like some tips on that too. I have my
Yeah.
own way of doing it, but I want you to,
Yeah.
since you're the presenter, I want you
So
to explain it.
So the floor is very convenient. It's
Hmm.
just not so good for you. You're
Right.
on your knees, you're bending forward. The good thing is if they throw something, you're on the floor to pick it up. But if you have a changing table or something, where you can put something down and you are in a better position biomechanically to change that baby's diaper, that's the best thing.
Hmm.
But, if you have to keep bending over, even when they start walking and you're bending over to hold their hand, it starts hurting your back. You just
Yeah.
can't do that. You can't put your body in that position because it wears on your body.
Right.
Those little bodies are going to get stronger and get better. Yours, unless you intentionally strengthen it and be aware of
Right.
your posture all the time, it's not.
Right.
So a changing table, a dining room table, whatever the case may be, put the little changing pad down and have a specific spot. That's really the better way to do it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Just like those simple tips will actually help in the long run.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because one day you're
Absolutely.
going to wake up and you're going to go, gosh, why is this hurting?
Hmm.
Oh, because I always do it this way. And it's
Right.
hard to break a habit. So if you start a good habit, it's easier than breaking a bad habit. So, 6 months down the road, I always do it this way, or the baby's used to doing it this way.
Hmm.
Um, I've watched my granddaughter, and we go to change the diaper, and she just flops down, opens her legs, like, go ahead, do it. So I'm like, oh, I guess it's where we change diapers.
Yeah.
So, they learn by your habits, so you
Right.
teach them as well. So
Right.
as they grow up, which they do grow fast. I mean, your little girl's
Ooh,
grown so fast.
I know she's fantastic. I
Yeah,
can't even complain. She's fantastic,
yeah,
baby. So
yeah. That's so nice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Darlene, so much for
You're
coming on
welcome.
live. I appreciate it. I'm so happy you came.
Well,
And
this was
just
fun.
yeah, it was fun. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed this. So maybe a little later down the line, if you have some more tidbits or anything like that, please come
Uh-huh.
back. I'd
Yep.
appreciate that. And how can the members of the group or anyone, get in contact with you if they're in your area and they want to come see you or just chat
Thank
with you
you.
about a couple of things? How would they get in contact with you?
So probably the best way to contact me, the name of the facility is called Back to Health, but email is probably the best way for me.
Okay.
Info at backtohealthpt.com. That will come directly to me.
Mhm.
But we also have a Facebook page. It's called Back to Health Physical Therapy.
Okay.
And we often have like Saturday morning free live yoga during this whole crisis. So people can join in on that. And we try to put little tidbits on. Um, it's not as professional as some people. We don't have a studio, but gives you good information and it's
Absolutely.
real.
That's
So
absolutely. That's all we
yeah.
need is
Well,
information. That's the
thank
that's
you,
the most
Lele.
important part. You're welcome. So
Yeah.
thanks again for coming on. I totally appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Come
You
back again,
too.
okay? All
All
right.
right.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. All right.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.